Okay, the recording has started, and welcome to this workshop. We're going to be talking today about creating Google templates. I am Karen Hoyack. I'm going to switch from here to present to you my little presentation that hopefully you already got shared with you. If you didn't, I can share it again at some point. I'm going to share my entire screen with you guys. Share. All right, so if somebody could respond and just let me know that you can see this blue rectangle, because I can't see you guys anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can see it.
All right, cool. So now, and I can see all you guys who are up here in our same document. So again, if something happens and you need to leave, that's okay. I just want you to have the resources so that, let me switch it to this, make sure everyone's here. Okay, good. You guys are just responding that you can see it. Good. So the first slide is just talking about me. So first of all, I'm not an expert, but I use all these templates that I'm sharing with you. And it's a great way to improve your students' digital distance learning. And for yourself too, it keeps you kind of organized and able to grade things, which we want to be able to grade things really, really quickly. So I was teaching art for a long, long time, and now I'm teaching digital media and design. I also actually taught art last trimester, and thank goodness I don't have to teach any art this trimester. It's just digital media, so it'll be actually not so difficult. What are templates is the next slide. Let me just pause for a second and make sure that anybody has any questions so far. We good?
Okay. Are we going to get are we going to get a copy of this?
This so whole, yeah, so I can paste it again. I'm sorry.
Hi, Karen.
Hey,
Karen.
I work with Adrian because I'm just trying to take notes, but I'm wondering if you're going to send that to us.
Yeah, so I just posted it. I posted it in the chat. The whole thing is shared with you guys. So no, we got this. I got you.
Thank you.
No problem. So first of all, what are templates? So I'm not going to read all these slides. You can read them at your leisure, as I'm sure you have so much time. But really, it's just about figuring out ways to organize the information so that your students can give you the answers that you need. So you can make them personalized so that it's for whatever topics you're trying to cover. And you should definitely find other people to share templates with, because you can always customize them depending on what your assignment is. So then the next slide is talking about collaborating with other teachers, finding teachers, and stealing their work. I mean, it's the best. You hit make a copy, and then you change it so that it's your own, and then you edit the content to fit your topic. That's all that says is editing. You want to create directions specific for your students and your topic. And you already know this, but you have to be even more explicit when you're doing this, because you can't remind the kid like complete sentences. They have periods and they have capital letters. You have to be really explicit and write the directions repeatedly so that they know. So personalizing the content has to do with sentence starters. You can assign these to those who need the additional support, like if you have any L students, or you have some students who are special ed and you know they can't handle this huge assignment that you've just given to them. The other thing is vocabulary. If you want students to use specific vocabulary that are like on your topic, you should make it really easy for them to use those words. So you're going to post them in the assignment, and then you're actually going to make it so they can cut and paste it if they know how to do that. And the last thing there in personalizing it is using the tools available that are in there already. And I just took little screenshots. Is there a question?
Okay, oh good.
Oh, you can't see the presentation templates someone's posting, Jennifer. So if you click this one should open my sample reflection with the word bank. All right, so this is my 7th grade reflection, literally from last trimester. And I had them do an infographic assignment. So then I have the, whoops, my computer is very slow right now. So having the name and the date is, you know, it already labels it with their name, but it's just nice to have them remember to do that. Down here, it says the name of the assignment again and the topic, reminding them about all the directions. It's being really specific. I have a word bank here for them, and I didn't make it confusing. They can just take this, and they can copy this, copy and paste it into their answers. This is 7th grade, so some of you are, if you're on elementary, this is probably more advanced, but I write a lot of directions in red, and then I want them to delete it once they're done. So here's my first question. You can actually just change this to black if you want, and they don't have to delete it, but this is where so that when you're looking at it as a teacher, you can actually figure out, like, what is it this kid wrote to me? So I use these boxes to do that. Is there any questions? I feel like people are posting questions.
Yes. Oh.
Yes, I'm in Docs right now.
Okay. So Karen, when you posted, did you do this through classwork assignment?
Oh, okay. So that's a good question. So this whole presentation, I'll go back to here.
Okay.
So I'm just talking, this is talking about just personalizing the content in Google Docs. There's this little symbol. So you can obviously personalize the content in Google Docs, in Google Slides, and in Google Sheets.
Okay.
So those are really, if I go back for a minute, I'm really just covering Google Docs, Google Slides, and Google Sheets.
Right. Okay.
And then what I do is by the end, I'm showing you how to share it with your.
That's what the question was. Okay. So,
yeah.
So you're creating an assignment, right? You're in the assignment category.
So well, you're getting ahead of yourself. So I actually do this before I'm into the Google Classroom at all.
Oh.
I'm starting in Google Docs, and I'm like, all right, what did they do? What did they read? Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't realize that. Okay. I was picturing myself already in Google Classroom.
No. This is like you're doing your lesson planning, and you're just like, all right, yeah. What are the questions I need them to answer?
Okay. Doing this in just a document.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying, like, when I first started, I was starting with a blank document, and that's kind of overwhelming. And that's kind of overwhelming for your students too. Like, oh, just create a Google Doc, and they're like, oh, I don't know what to write. So then once you create that first one, or you copy that first one from a teacher, you can do that, and you can just edit it, and that way it makes sense to you. So this is all Google Docs that I'm talking about for this section. So hopefully, if you do have any more questions, you can keep interrupting me. Wait, so Jennifer can't see the presentation. I think that you have to click on me, Karen Hoyack, in order to see what I'm posting, because all of us are actually allowed to share our screens. So Jennifer, does that make sense? You want to try that? Make sure you can see the presentation. Do I need to share?
I cannot see the presentation at all. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let me just post, I'm going to post I'm going to talk more about which number slide I'm on, so that way, because Google Hangouts or Google Meet, wherever we are, is not really that easy. I don't know if you guys tried teaching, but Zoom was a lot easier than this. But so I am on slide number 6. And I'm on the area where we're just talking about Google Docs. So I do use all 3 of these different things. I use Slides, I use Docs, and I use Sheets. I think Google Docs is a good place to start, because mostly you'll understand how to write things in there. So using those boxes, you saw how I used the blue boxes. You don't have to use blue. You can use whatever color you want. I do like to use different colors for different assignments so that when I'm in the classroom, I can immediately see if they're on the right page. So if, for example, in my 8th grade, I use yellow a lot because they're always on the wrong page. So I can check, and it keeps me organized so that when I look at something or I glance at it, oh, the yellow one is always going to be my reflections, or the blue one is always going to be my reflections for 7th grade. The other thing is you can use a highlight function, and that has to do with if you give them 3 answers, like A, B, and C, you say to them, highlight the right answer, so that they just take the answer that they know is correct and they highlight it with whatever color they want. That's just another way for you to kind of scaffold that questioning so that you're not just constantly asking them to do written responses. Does this make sense to everybody? Can everyone see the slide number 6?
Yeah, Karen, I just had a question. So you're having them actually answer stuff on the Google Doc. So you're
right. So I have not posted this to my Google Classroom yet.
So you're making a copy for each student,
right?
And they're answering on the Google Doc.
So I will, yes. So there's 2 ways to do it. Google Docs, I only use that way. Other people sometimes use Google Docs collaboratively. So you might post it for the whole class and everyone is editing the same document at the same time. But I find chaos when that happens. So I use Google Slides, or I use Google Sheets if I'm having everyone work simultaneously on the same document.
Yeah, Karen, I might be skipping ahead, but getting into sharing. So, So when we shared the ones that the district rolled out to us,
you
know, the lessons from like last week, we had to put it in our drive, make a copy, and then scroll down and say, make a copy for each student or something.
Yes, exactly.
Is that kind of where this is? I'm not sure how to do that myself. I just, okay.
So that is exactly what you're going to be able to do, hopefully, in the next, 15 minutes.
Yeah, because I made a mistake of sharing it the wrong way, where they were all, it was before, I luckily did it on an assignment that it didn't really matter, but they were all on the same document, but you have to make sure you make a copy for each student, right?
Yes, exactly. So, okay, so I am on slide number 7, and it says individual assignment. We're talking about a Google Doc. That's that blue symbol. It says docs underneath it. So on the right, I screenshotted this create assignment. And then, yes, this is exactly that moment that Adrienne was just talking about, where you're like, oh my goodness, I messed up. And I have them, students can edit my file. What? You do not want your students to edit your file because they're going to mess it up. So, or they're going to try and write in it. So if you make that mistake, I have noticed that if you don't select make a copy for each student, you cannot just click and get this drop down easily. You might have to create a new assignment, which is really annoying. But that's why don't do that at 11 o'clock at night when you're tired. Try and do it at a time that you're not so tired. How do you add screenshots to a doc? Oh, that's a good question. So you go up to insert, just like you do. I'm in Google Slides right now. If you can see me, I'm in Google Slides. It's this kind of, I don't know, orangey yellow thing. You would go up to insert, the same exact as in, I can go into the sample reflection actually. If you're able to follow me, I go to insert and I go to image, excuse me. And then I would click on upload from computer. And then if you have screenshots saved, they will appear at the top usually, and they'll be stamped with whatever time you just took them. And then you just click on that, and then you click open, and then it pops up. In order to edit the size of it, you want to click on it, and then you can modify the size of it so that you can make it smaller or bigger or what have you. I'm going to delete that though, because I don't want it. All right, so posting, that's another workshop. Let's see, the next slide I'm going to go is to slide number 8. Is everyone okay with Google Docs though? Should I go back and do you know how to add those boxes that I talked about with the colors?
Could you repeat, please?
Sure. So in our Google Doc, I'm going to go back to slide number 6. And I do highly recommend that you use these boxes in order for you to organize those student responses. And you can add the boxes by, I'll press enter. If you can follow me, you would say insert table, and then you just do one by one. And here's my table. You can fill your table by using the bucket filler, which is here. And I'm going to change this one to like red, let's say. So then you can have my font is red too, so I can't actually read it. Okay. So that's how you can add your own boxes, and you can modify your colors. Like I said, you should modify your colors. It makes it more interesting for your students. And it keeps you organized if you choose to organize your stuff with color. Did I miss a couple questions? I'm sorry if I did. Oh, how to create a copy for each student. Okay. So I did screenshot these, but I can also just go into Classroom. And then I have my Google Classrooms. I have my sample classroom. I'm going to go into classwork, create assignment. This one is going to be individual student assignment. I'm going to go down here to add, and then I'm going to click on Google Drive. And then hopefully your assignment is somewhere living in here. You can also search for it. And you can, mine is obviously under recent. Usually you're working on the assignment when you're, or you have it open. I'm going to go ahead and click on add. So do not click assign yet. You're going to come over here to where this arrow is, and you're going to change it so that it says make a copy for each student. The other thing is you don't just have to add one thing. If you have like a little mini video or a screencast that goes with your assignment, you can look for, let's see, sharing settings, for example. I do mini videos, and I just have so students can view the file. I don't want them messing with my video, but you don't have to just limit yourself to one thing per assignment. You can add more things. Now, you don't want to confuse your students. So I don't know that I would use that with everyone. And if it's not necessary for the assignment, you don't have to do that. But that's a way for you to make a copy for each student. And you can just say students can view the file. If you decide you don't want that, you click on that X and it removes it. Okay. So
Karen, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So when they turn that in,
yeah,
so I have like probably 150 kids in one 8th grade section. So I'm going to get 150 individual forms being turned right back into me, right?
So I'm not teaching you Google Forms right now. This is all.
No, I mean 150 of the things you just created. I forget what that's. Just the doc. Right? Okay. So I'd have to look at like 150 individual student documents.
Right. So as a special teacher, I can tell you there are things called Google Forms.
Yeah, that's what I've been using. So I just wanted to clarify, that's what I should use, yes?
Yes. Oh, definitely use Google Forms. It's just that for me, I don't like looking at all of my students like bundled data, especially if I'm asking for like screenshots. And I'm also doing more creative stuff like having them post pictures, depending on what the assignment is. So Google Forms is a really, really good way to organize your classes if you have a lot of students. But I teach 6 classes this trimester, and I like the idea too that the students can go back and revise their work. And Google Forms, I find, is a little more like, if it's a test, then you're good, or it's something that they're not going to have to go back and revise or edit. But in using this Google Docs method, I can write them a personalized, I can write them a message. I only have, let's see, it's 10:51, so I can't show you how to do that. But you can make suggestions on their thing. So someone just asked about using Google Forms. So I feel like that is beyond the scope of what this template is. You can create templates using Google Forms too, but it is a lot more complicated to deal with the Sheets data. And some of you are probably capable and able to do that. And I use Google Forms only in a limited basis. Like I said, it's more for things where they're just going to have one response or two responses, and then you're just going to grade it. But I have my students go back and revise stuff, and so Google Forms doesn't work so well for what I'm teaching. So I'm now going to switch it to Google Slides, which is slide number 8. It says Google Slides templates. I use these for individual, and I use these for shared collaborative projects. So our slides better so you can lock the screen so kids can't change what you write. So I have not figured out a way to do that. You can do something called it's called skip slide, and then the students can't see it really, but they are going to be able to edit it. And it is very, very uncomfortable as a teacher, like having kids go in and mess with your stuff. So that's why I have in here shared collaborative slides. I'm on slide number 9 now. And I would definitely label the slides with the students' names if they haven't done this before, because then you're going to have every kid, jumping into slide 1. All of them are trying to put their names in there, and that does not work well. So you're going to want to pre-populate those slides with the student's name so that they are able to, before they even jump in there, they're able to know, oh, I'm slide 4, I'm slide 5. I generally do it just alphabetically so that I can grade it really easily. So individualize the lesson was just asked. In order for you to do that, you would have to, when you're in Google Classroom, you would have to, there's a way for you to I'll go back into my sample classroom to show you. So see where it says all students? If you unclick that, well, of course, I don't have any classes any students in this class because it's my pretend class that I use for demonstration. But it'll let you uncheck certain students. So so in order for me to, I would probably call it reflection 2 is what I usually do. If I have students who need to have a modified assignment, I would call it presentation 2, so that they don't really know that that's what it is. But I would push it out at the same time so that all the students, think that it's exactly the same. And it's really, I make it visually similar. I do have an example of that that I can go back. I think it's back on personalizing the content. Yeah, on slide number 5, it says sample modified assignment. So if you want to check that out, it's back on slide number 5. And you can see how I did some sentence starters for some of them. Because all of them don't need sentence starters. So back into the Google Slides, you have assigned, and I have a sample here of one that I did. I deleted the student names, but I left the way that the students edited the background so that you could get an idea of what they can do creatively, because it is really fun. This was a 7th grade assignment, and the idea was that they were creating a helpful screencast for somebody else. But if you go to slide 3, that's my sample slide. And I created a little video for them on slide number 2, and it talks about giving them the specific directions on how to do this. Of course, they can always ask you more questions. But then if you go to slide 4, I labeled the student's name, but then the student can change the background, they can change their fonts and make them kind of funky. Slide 5 is like, I don't know, an ocean cloud kind of thing. But you can see how I have a box for them so that they can put their video there. And then they would look at my screencast on slide 2 if they don't remember how to do that. My videos, I try to put them on YouTube now because then they can use closed captioning if they don't speak English. That's a whole nother layer of my teaching that I didn't have to do when I was teaching live. Now I'm trying to make sure everything's very accessible for students who might have a language barrier or a learning barrier where I can't just talk my way through it. I'm going to go ahead, close this. Are there any questions about the collaborative? Okay, so then individual slides is like Adrian was saying earlier about the Google Docs. This is when you're going to have each kid create their own slideshow. My sample is my puzzle cube assignment for my 8th graders. So this is a huge summative assignment. This is not like, oh, it's going to be a day assignment. So I gave you like a really big assignment, but you just have an idea of how to deliver directions, embed them into your Google Slides. Just have to wait. If I click here, there's like a little hand that comes and I can change. You see down here where there's red text in the speaker notes? I really like to use that area to give the kids directions. And then I have a bunch of slides that they have to follow the directions that I put into the speaker notes. You can just edit your boxes up here in slides to say like whatever it is you want them to post in that spot. Let's see, the very last one is just the reflections. So this is how you could use Google Slides for an individual project. This is a summative assessment. At the end of a large unit, they have to take screenshots. They have to insert lots and lots of images. This is probably the most complicated slides presentation that I have them do. And because it's a team project, they are allowed to share images between each other. I would limit it to 4 slides or less in distance learning. So I am not going to share this with my class, but I just wanted you guys to understand ways to put directions and to support like organizing all of this data and information in a cohesive kind of manner. Because if you tell a kid to start a Google Slides, it's like, well, how many do I need? And what images do I have to include? So this kind of organizes it all for them. All right, so that's Screencastify of their Google Slides. Oh, I'm just recommending that. Kids can do this. They can Screencastify things. I'm going to move on to slide 11 unless there's a question. Is there any questions? Let me post that. So I think that this is the presentation link again, in case you need it. All right, back here. All right, posting slides to Google Classroom is the exact same thing as when we posted before. The collaborative one, you're going to want it so students can edit the file, which makes a lot of teachers uncomfortable because that's your stuff. But you have to do it. It's stressful, but it's good at the same time. And then the individual slideshow, you're going to make sure that that one says make a copy for each student. And again, if you mess up when you're posting that, you're better off just deleting the whole assignment, because make a copy for each student. You cannot, you can't change it from this to that very easily. So you're just going to want to create a new assignment. It's one of those things about Google Classroom that is kind of a negative. And in an assignment, just so you guys understand, you can put in due dates, you can assign them at a specific time of day, all of that good stuff. I'm going to move on to slide number 12. And this is talking about Google Sheets. Sheets is that like Excel kind of thing. I use collaborative Google Sheets when I'm having my students come up with the topics for, if I have a whole list of topics, then they can choose their own topic. Again, that's a mess, so you want to watch them so that like you don't have kids deleting other kids. But I do have the sample here, which is, it's all of these screencasts that I have my 7th graders. The questions that 6th graders have. I have 4 students who are able to try and solve that problem using a screencast. So they would be able to edit this. Google Sheets is a really good way for them to be able to organize it. You can, by the way, track changes. You can go in there, and if somebody does like delete another person's slide or delete somebody's name, there is a way for you to go back and do that. Because it's 11:01, I don't want to cover that. I also use individual Google Sheets for tracking like formative data. So I use it for typing words per minute, and you don't have to pre-populate all these dates like I did. I like for kids to have to learn that, but in this case, resistance learning, I would probably enter it all in there for them. It gives them a really clear understanding of what assignments are, what the trimester looks like. And I do, because this is data that's like numbers, it's words per minute, I do have them create a graph, which in Google Sheets is called a chart. And I have them post it right here into this big area here. So each student gets their own formative tracking sheet. You can use it for logging data that's not numerical, like you could have them write down the book they've been reading. You could write how many pages, I guess. That would be really good, because then they could create a graph or a chart to visualize that data. And then you're going to post it. So you're going to do the same thing, but this time it's a Google Sheet. So you're going to make it so students can edit the file if it's a whole list of things and you just want them to like choose one of the topics. And then if you're going to have them do an individual one, you're going to have to make a copy for each student and then post that so that they understand. I usually make the due date for these ongoing assignments. I make it like the last day of the trimester so that they know when it's due. I do remind them though, like each week, like, hey, make sure you're checking your formative tracking sheet, and don't turn it into me until the end of the trimester though. I'm going to move on to slide 14. I posted just all of my templates that I reviewed today. The first 2 are slides, the individual slides and the collaborative slides. The second 2 is Google Docs. So the reflection sample and the assignment with writing and highlight sample. Both of those are Google Docs. And Google Doc Collaborative, I don't really use it, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't use it if you want to. You would just post it so that you were sharing it instead of having one for each student. The last one I have there is Google Sheets, and you can use that collaboratively, or you can use that individually. And at the bottom it says there, Google Forms is another great resource, but I find it doesn't let me have students go back and refine their work. So I don't use it that much. I'm going to move on to slide 15. And those are just tips in general, like try and keep things simple. Make sure kids have a chance to be creative using colors and personalizing the background. And they're able to do things that, like capture screenshots and do creative things with the digital world, let them do that. Be very specific with your directions. So if you want them to write incomplete sentences, make sure you're telling them that, because they will be like, oh, I didn't know. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but you're teachers. Write out the requirements. So if you're going to have them write out a whole paragraph, make sure it's very clear to students how many sentences, because they'll be like, oh, I thought it was like 2 sentences. And you're like, no, you need to write like 3 or 4 sentences minimum. Make it easy for yourself to review the work by separating the teacher text and student responses. Because if you're writing in black and then all the students are writing in black too, you're not going to like remember which text is which. So using those boxes is really helpful. Changing the color for things is really helpful. I mentioned this before about Screencastify. If you have time, record a short, like 30 seconds or less, because your students probably won't watch more than that. Just reviewing that assignment. You don't even have to be in the screencast. It's just your voice, so that you review like what you're expecting for them to do. And then keeping that positive attitude, and laughing at your own mistakes. I've done it too. All of us have done it, where you post something and the sharing settings are messed up and like, oh, whatever. The students are fine. You'll be fine. Just be flexible with everybody. Have fun. And then the last slide. Oh, it's just tips for organizing your Google templates. So once you've created them and they're in the world of Google Classroom, they are stored in a folder called Templates Do Not Edit. But that just means that if you want to find something, you can look in there. The other thing you can do is you can reuse a post, and that's when you're in a classroom. You can it says create, and then it says assignment is where you'd usually go. You can go down to reuse a post, and you can find another class where you've used that exact template. And you can open it up and modify anything that you need. It actually creates another version of that assignment so that you can change it if you need to for your class. I think that is the last one. Yeah. So I'm going to come back in here and stop sharing my screen. So are there any questions or? Nobody has any questions? Too much? Too little? Hopefully everyone got access to the to that slideshow, and hopefully the links are shareable. And if they're not, I will just laugh and go in and change it. That's really the best thing to do, is just try and do it. And using Google Forms, like someone was suggesting, once you've figured this out, you'll be able to use Google Forms too. But if there's no more questions, then I think that we will end our session. Thank you so much for coming. You should be able to email me if you have any other questions. And good luck out there today and and the next couple months.
Thank you very much, Karen.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Nice seeing you too.
Okay. Okay, right here, meet. That's okay. That is
Oh my God.